Well, it's great to be back here at the Emerald Hotel. I can't believe that they still allow me in this pub after my antics over the years. But anyway, it's racing's #1 pub, and for Dream Thoroughbreds as well, they always put on a great afternoon. This special guest, he is one of the most, he's been around for a long time, 50 plus years in the racing industry, heavily involved in the racing industry. He's won countless awards, and he was also the ambassador of the Warrnambool Racing Club. And some would say every year he went down there, he was the ambassador of the Warrnambool Racing Club. But anyway, I admire this man, I respect him, and just what he's done all over the years. Would you please welcome Shane Templeton?
Going a bit heavy, mate. Then I would have started at the club when I was 13.
Because I'm being fair about Warrnambool, you're a bit of a country boy, even though you're from the city, you've spent a lot of time in the country. Was that a fair comment that Warrnambool was like a second home to you down there?
I've missed 2 Warrnambool carnivals since I went to my first in 1975. You do the maths on that. I can't remember why I missed the 2. Something must have gone horribly wrong both those. Anyway, I've missed 2 since 75. Yeah, I love it.
Major highlights down there over the 3-day carnival?
On track.
Any that stood out? I mean, obviously you punt a fair bit, but is there any that stood out?
On track or off?
Both.
Well, there'll be nothing spoken about the off track. I can guarantee you that.
You've got to remember it.
Know about that. I can't. Warrnambool. On track, just some of the greatest. Look, I think it's the best carnival I've been to anywhere in the world, and I'll never change that opinion. Standing up on that hill watching that race is still my greatest delight. You know, I've seen much better horses, I've been to Japan, Cups and things like that, but that 5 or 6 minutes is the best in racing for me. Spectacular, it's riveting. There can be horrible things go wrong, but it's part and parcel of the game. It's an extreme sport, and I was lucky enough to see Fox Boy and see that horse do the biggest jump. Remember when we ran into the crowd and came over the top. So Banner stands, most amazing thing we've seen at the racetrack. So yeah,
You're a bit of a Cox Plate aficionado. You've worked on the Cox Plate for many years. Moonee Valley employed you many times for their breakfast and also on race day. How does a raceman like Warrnambool compare with the Cox Plate, who was so near to your heart, being you live very close to it?
Okay, so Warrnambool's the best carnival, and that's the best experience. But my favourite race on the flat, without any doubt, is the Cox Plate. I was there when Toby Bronze won his second in 1967. Jimmy Johnson took him to the front about 2.5 furlongs from home. Didn't need to, did it. So that meant that everybody from the North Hill, which is now the Tabaret, everybody could start clapping from the 2.5 home, which is what they did, showing the hats in the air. And I fell in love with the Cox Plate that day, and haven't fallen out of love with it ever since.
What about with the new track renovations, where they're going to change the whole profile of the track? Do you think that will detract from the race?
For us, it will. What I mean, how you kindly described how long I've been in the industry. Look, it will be completely different. The Tabaret's going, it's going to be incorporated in the new stand. It will be a whole different structure. But in 30, 40 years' time, the next generations that come along won't even remember that. So they'll have good fun watching replays of it. So I see where they're going. It will secure their future, and I can live with that. But it'll never be the same for us.
Well, most people wouldn't know, but Shane was one of the first people in, maybe not in Victoria, Australia, that was part of a syndication company back in the late 1970s. Tell us about that.
I'll take it like that. Dave, can I just say, I really envy you, and I mean really envy you. Newspapers, radio, TVN, my little stint at Slade Bloodstock. I got to interview Anthony Friedman. You get to interview Sam. And I don't mean anything by that, obviously. We got on great. In fact, I got one birthday I got 2 tickets to go and see Stephen Wright, the comedian. You know who my date was? Your dad. She was the only person I knew in Australia that liked Stephen Wright as much as I do. All right, now back to the syndicates. I wasn't quite involved in the business so much, but 2 of my colleagues at the Herald and Weekly Times in 77 I think it was, they decided this. They started a company called Share Racing Australia. Now, there were a couple of syndicators around, but it wasn't. These were the first ones to get glossy about it because they had good media skills. Anyway, the first horse they virtually bought was Star Shower, who was unbeaten as a 2-year-old and won the Blue Diamond. So they're often running Share Racing Australia before syndications were really popular. And anyway, one day they called me over to the Phoenix Hotel, which wasn't an unusual stroll in those days, and they said, I've got a really good idea. They've got a good idea for me to write a story. He said, what we want you to do is focus on Tony Lopes, who was their trained at Flemington, and what you've got to do is talk about how different his life is now. He's not training racehorses anymore, he's actually training people. I thought, yeah, that's a good concept. I'm glad they did it because I did write the story and I finished up winning the Bird Book Award for that story. It's the first award I ever won. And it was basically due to Derek Ballantyne and Rex Lopez and Star Shower and Share Racing Australia. And the other one we were talking about, I'll move on to quickly, then you can start pumping me on other things. In 1987, the Herald is still coming out on Melbourne Cup Day. So Jeff Slattery's the sports editor and we've devised this whole way to plan it. We got the race started at the time we wanted, but it still meant we were really on a tight deadline to get the paper out onto the streets. So we devised this scheme that Ray Huxley, who was the chief racing editor at the time, he would just sit in the press room and he'd file the straight story straight away. We'd designed we'd gone through every one of the runners. It took us weeks, but we had about 40 of them there, where we'd set up a template that had their breeding, how much they cost, and a photo of them. That's all we did. And then we knew on the front page on the Herald, race story would go there, the template would go there, there'd be a big photo, and then I would file on the connections. Now, mobile phones had just come in. And I came up with this idea that don't want to run up to the press room, I'm going to file from the mounting yard. So I had to ring the stewards and get permission to get the first mobile phone on a race course in Australia ever. This is in 1987. So the plan was I had to get it to them before the first and they would give it to me back after the horses had jumped in the Melbourne Cup. Now, I don't know whether you remember mobile phones in 1987. So I wheeled it in a wheelbarrow, and I took it to the steward's room, and they put it behind the scales, and then when they jumped, I went and got it from them. Now here's the deal though, and this was a great story, and for you, but you'd appreciate it as well. This is the first time a syndicated horse won the Melbourne Cup. It's Kenside. So I've got 25 minutes to interview the owner, the trainer, and then file. Now normally there'd be one trainer, one owner, Guesty, you'll know the trainer, Bart Cummings, jockey, forget him, I'll just go into the connections. Ray can write about the jockey. But all of a sudden, Harry Lawton's there with his 6 owners, and I've got to interview every one of them, and then stand in the mounting yard and get that copy filed. Fortunately, I had a fabulous copy taker and we got it done. But it is coincidental I'm here today because my history with syndications, has been building and building all along. And of course, I was with Rob and Corinna at Slade Bradstock for a little while. And look at it now, today. I mean, if there weren't syndications like Dave's and all the other ones around, I don't think there'd be racing, really. I mean, I think you've been so important for getting people into anticipating and being able to afford being involved in racing. We would have just been marking time for ages, all millionaires and a couple of local butchers would have been owning all the horses and sheiks, and anyway, it's much better to have these people, isn't it?
Absolutely. Now, you talk about those days back in the 80s. You've had basically every role in the media you've actually done. Now, what was it like working with stars when you're younger? Obviously, these people look bigger than what they probably are. But Bill Collins, Rolo Roylance, I know you worked closely with Rolo as well. Jack Elliott was there at the Herald Sun. What was it like to work alongside those people? Because they were sort of larger than life. They were on the TV, which was the only place we saw them.
I was 17 when I started, and the whole thing gobsmacked me. I mean, walked in, I had hair down to my shoulders. You might remember that. It wasn't great either. But it was phenomenal because Bill eventually started working with in 1976 on a full-time basis. He's the greatest talent that I've ever worked with. The second greatest might be Bert Newton. But these guys were like, there was nothing that Bill Collins couldn't do. He could sing, he could host anything. He just happened to love racing. He called races pretty well. He taught me everything I knew about radio technique, everything. One of the most treasured possessions I have is a letter I got from Bill later in his life, virtually saying how much he'd enjoyed being a part of my development. I was probably a hack when I first started. He didn't put it that way, but he taught me exactly how to improve. And yeah, I owe a lot to Bill Collins. Rolo Roylance was a great help. I mean, through circumstances, I finished up becoming his number 2 because poor old Tom Moon, who was a ripper bloke, died not too long after I started there, and Ray Huxley had scurried off to the age, and I finished up number 2 racing rider when I was about 23, and I became number 1 racing rider at 27, the youngest ever at the Herald, and that's simply because Rolo retired and got out of my way.
How have you seen the media change over the years? Obviously, with computers, has it made it more difficult as far as is there more work involved with the computers? It's easier probably in a lot of ways because you had to file back then and it took a lot longer. But I know I speak to a lot of the older gentlemen that were in the game back in the 70s and 80s, and they had a lot of long lunches on a Friday, where I don't see a lot of media people doing that these days.
Interesting concept. Well, at the Sporting Globe, we were actually the first publication to go online at the Herald and Weekly Times, and they did that for a simple reason, because we only came out once a week by then. The Saturday had already ended, so we're a once a week publication. So it meant that if the system crashed, which it did many times in those first 12 to 14 months, then we had time to start all over again and get it done. So they couldn't have, we were the guinea pigs for the dailies. The only thing I reflect on is, how the hell did we ever get by without mobile phones back in those days? I mean, half the trainers, well, not half, 3/4 of the trainers wouldn't answer the phone at home. If they did, I'll use a couple of examples. Say Tommy Hughes and Jeff Murphy. People remember those names? They were the cleanest people in the world, I can assure you of that, because every time their wives answered the phone, they were in the shower. And so if they legitimately weren't at home, and we didn't know where they were, how the hell were we ever going to find them? So I just, as much as they drive me mad these days, I just don't know how we ever lived with, particularly in the press, how we lived without mobile phones.
What did you enjoy most, TV, print or radio?
Radio. Yeah, I love radio. I had good fortune at UZ. I learned off Bill at TV, and then we also worked at UZ, but then there was this period where I did sports night in the nights, and then I did radio, I did breakfast in the morning, and so I was covering all sports, and I virtually hosted most of those shows. So I did enjoy radio the most, but only marginally.
I was told recently by somebody, now I don't know if it's true or not, but I was told that, did you once fall asleep on the radio?
No. It's pretty hard to fall asleep on the radio. No, I didn't fall asleep.
That puts that to bed. Wait till I see that video person. But let's get to the punt, which I know has been a big part of your career, and I suppose it's why a lot of us are involved in the racing industry. Obviously, the horses, we love the horses, but betting is what keeps the racing industry going. Can you tell us about some of your big wins? I believe one was back in 19...
Oh, I can't.
There's no tax man here, it's all right. Back in 1990, Fire Oak won the Victoria Derby. I believe that was a big day for you. Good off.
Well, it's a big day in my memory because it's the worst, you brought up the worst experience that I could possibly tell you about. Yeah, so during my time I got a lot of straight sixes for the Winners Club at Moonee Valley. I mean, and that was what that was all about, the Winners Club. I mean, try and get it back. The only way they were ever going to get a really good dividend was get straight sixes. So I was very involved in straight sixes, and of course in those days they used to jackpot them. Not like now, you just don't know when they're going to do the bills up or not. Anyway, this way, let's cut to the chase. So there's $269,000 in the pool on Derby Day 1990. And I'd been having a reasonable run, so I invested a bit in it. And things started to go well, beginning with David Hayes. I think he won 4 races that day, might have been 5.
6.
But he was winning. You were there. But he was winning. I mean, the first one he won with was 40-1. So I got that in. So I reckon we've got half, well, maybe 3/4 out now. Anyway, so I get to the Derby, and I've got 7 runners in the Derby. It's one of my widest legs. And they hit the line, and it looks like Centro, Lee Friedman, and Damien Oliver has won. Anyway, after a really long delay, up goes the number of Fire Oak. Now, Damien Oliver was so sure he'd won, it's the only time I've ever seen him do it, he demanded to see the print. However, I've never seen a jockey get a race overturned when they demand to see the print. The print usually tells them it's wrong. Anyway, so Fire Oak has put me out of the straight 6. Now, I get the next 2 legs, so I would have been alive coming into the last race. I've got to leave the course. I've only got 2, and I'm walking off the course, and Mark Harding, a colleague of ours, said, "You know?" He said, "Where are you going?" I said, "I can't watch this last race. If Fire Oak hadn't won, I'd be alive in this straight 6. And I know that my 2 will fight it out." They were Mount Olympus and Kingston Rule, who actually went on and won the Cup on the Tuesday. And as I was walking out, I said, "Oh, here." I gave him 150. I said, "Go and take him in the Quinella. And I suggest you do the same yourself, because these 2 will savage the judge." And I walked off the course and I didn't listen or watch the last race. I might have found a local pub, and then I checked the results the next day. Anyway, they ran 1-2, of course. And the Quinella paid something like $30 or $25. And I'd forgotten I'd even taken it. Anyway, let's talk about Fire Oak. This is the horse that put me out of this straight 6, and it jackpotted, so I would have had the only unit on it. 269,000 in 1990, and I'd just been wiped out in my super by Armstrong Jones. I just wiped out my entire super, so it would have come in pretty handy. Anyway, so Fire Oak, he hadn't won a race before the Derby, so why was he running in it? He never won another race again. They retired him to stud. Nobody went near him, so they put him up for free service. No mare went near him, and this is the horse that cost me $269,000. The only little thing that happened at the end of it was that 3 weeks later, when I could bring myself to return to a race course at any time, Mark Harding said, "Thank God." He said, "I've been carrying this envelope around for 3 weeks. There's about $3.5 grand in there from the Quinella, so sort of softened the blow, but not too much."
Could have been, yeah. But I'm sure you've got stories where you have won a fair bit of money.
I'm telling you.
No, I have heard a story about Warrnambool. It's not going to be told another time, but I heard there was a big dividend one day down to the Bull. That might have been in the vicinity of 6 figures. Would that be correct? Just
No.
No. Often when we watch the races when you were working at TVN, often I'd take the footy at home, but you'd come on, and I know you love horse racing, but Shane would come on and he'd say, the score on the football is, and give it away. Like, so many people would be frustrated, but Shane, that's another one of your loves, the Hawthorn Football Club.
Hands up.
No.
Not bad. Yeah, the Hawks. That goes back a long way. I don't think we need to worry about that. Let's be fair. It's Richmond playing GWS.
Yeah.
The fact that Hawthorn beat 3 of the ordinary finalists in the last 5 games of the year means nothing to me, of course. Just as well we didn't get in there, we'd be playing Richmond, but Richmond would kill us. That was the one side we couldn't beat this year, so. Oh, bad luck, sorry. You raised footy. Who do you vote for?
Collingwood.
Yeah.
Just the best team won.
Just another episode in my life of Collingwood letting you down.
Now, does anyone want to ask Shane a question? We'll open everyone now to ask a question. Anyone got any questions for Shane?
Except my family, they're not allowed.
Yes, gentlemen.
I've got one. Was Vane the best horse you've seen?
Best sprinter by far. Would have murdered Black Caviar.
Why do you say that?
Because he would have.
Yeah, you must have a reason.
He was the best sprinter I've ever seen, and by a fair margin, by the way. He raced 14 times, 12 wins. There were serious excuses for both his losses. He won up to a mile, which Black Caviar never did. One day as a 3-year-old, he had 8 stone 10 down the straight against older horses, 6 furlongs. Every 100 metres they went, he went another length. He won by 10. He's the best sprinter. There will never be another Vane.
Do you think sometimes when we're a bit younger we do reminisce a bit too much about horses that you saw when you were very young? I mean, I know that you've gone on record as saying many times that Sobar is the best horse that you saw. Would that be right?
Not quite the best. I think he's the one who gets the most underrated. He won the Caulfield Cup at his 7th start and equalled Tulloch's course record. And then there were a series of things that went wrong, but he was an unbelievable 3-year-old. Vane's the best 3-year-old, the best sprinter I saw. And that's, I don't give a damn about any period of time. I have no hesitation in saying that. The middle distance gelders, now Winks has probably gone bang past all of them in the past few years, but we've been blessed with the middle distance gelders we've seen over all the eras from the 60s right up till now. In the space of 10 years we saw the best 3 mares we could probably ever expect to see race. I mean, Winks, Black Caviar and Mackay Diva, who gets forgotten in this, 3 Melbourne Cups, an Australian Cup of Cox Plate to the BFW, and she doesn't seem to ever get the accolades that she deserves, because since she raced, we've had Black Caviar and Winks. So if they hadn't come along, I mean, we'd still be talking about Mackay Diva now, wouldn't we? I mean, but I've been lucky. I've seen a lot of great horses.
Would Winks be the best though? I mean, she won 4 Cox Plates, of course. It's So You Think, who won 2. And then you had Kingston Town, of course, winning the 3 Cox Plates, and Dulcified, who dominated and then unfortunately was put down in the Melbourne Cup. Does Winks stand above them?
Well, when you get to 4, I guess she does. I mean, I can make an argument for So You Think winning 4. If he hadn't been sold overseas, I know what he would have done to Pinker. So that would have been 3. And then if they decided not to sell him Gal, who knows? He was outstanding. But she has to be rated that high, isn't it? In my time, we've seen a horse win 3 Melbourne Cups and a horse win 4 Cox Plates, and they're both mares. Tried to tell us that back in the late 60s, early 70s, you'd put a straitjacket on. Something like that.
Any other questions?
Yeah, look, well, the best race I ever saw was Bone Crusher and Our Whaley Star. What was the best race you ever saw?
Well, it wasn't that.
You didn't back it, did you?
No, well, and I don't want to demean that race. It was a great race because of the contest. And the jockeys both slaughtering their horses. That's what made it such a good race. They took off way too early. Bill called it brilliantly. It was exciting to watch. But those 2 horses don't rate in the top 50 that I've seen. So trying to nail me down to a great race, that's too hard.
Oh,
It's too hard.
Best jockey in Australia? Your opinion? Best jockey?
What now?
Do past and present.
Yeah, past and
Past and
present.
Past and present. Then these are always a bit tough.
What about Higgins?
He was outstanding, of course. If you want to talk about that era, we had a few. There was Higgins, Harry White, different style completely, Jimmy Johnson. I didn't see enough of Jeff Lane, which was a shame. And of course he passed this week. Wonderful man, a great jockey, but I just didn't see enough of him. Of the era that I watched, the guys that stand out for me a bit, Ollie, naturally, Mick Dickman. If you wanted a jockey to get you home, he'd get you the first half length with his forearms. He was that strong. And then if you had to produce the whip, that's when he'd get you the next length.
You get a lot of penalties today with the whip rule.
Well, Jimmy Johnson would have had more. Darren Beekman is lost a bit in. I think he was a complete jockey. At his peak, he was as good as any jockey I've seen in that era. And then, of course, all these modern ones today are fabulous riders.
With the Cox Plate, you know, I know you're saying we're moving the Tabarret and that, with the track, will they still have the camber down to the finish?
It's going to come across at an angle, isn't it?
Yes, I don't know whether
Like that,
when you saw
straight.
Mackay the way she finished.
Yeah, well, that's a very good point because the 6 furlongs at Moonee Valley was always the toughest, probably in Australia, because it rose from over there, the freeway side. It rose to the finishing line, you know, quite markedly. It was about that much, which doesn't look that much, but when you're continually racing and then rising, that's why it's the hardest 6 furlong to win, and why a lot of good stayers would win first up there at 6. Now, the one thing I haven't, and I won't be able to check it until we see it, is just check the camber of the track and how different it's going to be. You've nailed something. There could be completely different race
I
cars.
won't copy finished, it was just that part of it, you know, it was just sensational.
Anyone else? I suppose we better give him some horses to follow for the spring, or even next week.
I'll give them a couple, but it'll be left field, and then you can give them far more expert ones if you're at the coalface these days. These are not the obvious ones like Avilius and these horses. I just want to get you to mark down 2. Mick Kent's got a horse called Tarwin, and he's going to win a good race with this horse this spring. It could even be on Wednesday. I think you'll send him out Wednesday over a mile, but just keep your eye on him. Don't worry about the first up run. It was just a hit out. He's a very smart horse. And a mate of mine, Johnny Cole, he's got a share in a horse called Mahamides, who's probably on Group 1 or A plus level.
Correct.
But young Nick Ryan will win a good race with him in this preparation, and it won't be far away. He didn't get beaten too much by Homesman at the Valley, and I don't think the Valley is really his track. He was over on the inside, but they're my 2, and you'll get value. So Tarwin and Mahamides.
Okay, well I think after last weekend we saw how good Funstar went. A bit more genuine speed on. I think she'll be a lot better suited on it. She just won yesterday by only a narrow margin in the T-Rows. There was 3 horses went across the line. Great race, great racing. So I think Funstar in the Flight Stakes in a couple of weeks' time. And I'm hoping this weekend, James McDonald, who I do manage, he's got a couple of rides for the Freeman stable with South Bank and Groundswell. So I'm just hoping those horses can go well this weekend. But I know that you know, they wouldn't have booked J-Mac if the horses weren't going that well. So I'm just hoping that Sam's done the right thing and then they perform really well. Is there any regrets you have, Sean?
No? What, do you think I should?
No.
Yeah, I've got a regret. I've got a regret, a serious regret, that they shut down TV and on us and dumped us, because take a picture of this in your mind, ladies and gentlemen. There's 2 grey-haired people talking to each other about racing up on this stage. You won't see that again for a long, long time.
Ladies and gentlemen,